Welcome back to the Sportsball Podcast, your source for sports. Little rough intro there, as you can tell, we've been away for a while. Can't really give you an excuse as to why we've been gone so long. We just wanted to give the people a breather to catch up on some sports and then have us react to it all at once. And that's definitely the logic and excuse that we're going with for why we've been off for like 3 to 4 weeks, and definitely nothing else with having busy adult working lives or anything like that. So
full-time podcasting is hard, Andy. Come on now.
It is. And like Nate has mentioned multiple times, we're just kind of waiting for that Runza NIL deal to kick in for all of us here. So once we get that going, though, watch out.
I think the checks are just getting lost in the mail right now, so we'll soon.
Yeah, to be fair, I think in order for that to kick in, they probably need to contact us first, but we can keep trying to will it to existence. Right. Maybe we'll get something.
Absolutely. And a wide variety of topics that we'll cover here. Last that we left off with everybody, the NFL draft happened. The Nebraska spring game happened. You have your NBA and hockey playoffs that are in full swing and in the second round of both of those professional sports. And, on the college baseball side, season's starting to wind down for Nebraska and vice versa. And we'll be talking about, conference tournaments and College World Series pretty soon here with all of that. But go back to football here. So, yes, NFL draft, everybody's favorite time if you have stake in the game. And for the first time in quite a number of years, Denver finally had a first-round pick. Minnesota, right, the same issue as Denver was, needing a quarterback. And realistically, I think it was the first time in the era of the draft that 6 quarterbacks were taken in the first 12 picks of the draft. So it just shows you just how much, the overscope view of thing is how much the NFL has prioritized having a quote unquote franchise quarterback now going forward. And that's the thing that you need to succeed. And all the teams at the top end of the draft, definitely quarterback heavy draft too, which helps. But a lot of these teams looking just for the next, Patrick Mahomes, essentially. Who knows if that's going to happen with any of these draft classes. Certainly, you look at 2021 where you had Zach Wilson and God, who else was in that class? But either way, that was also a draft-heavy quarterback class, and Trevor Lawrence is really the only one that's panned out so far. Now, he's the only one that's still starting of all the drafted quarterbacks. Everybody else has been traded away from there
until Zach Wilson starts in Denver, baby.
Whoa, sir.
There's a new Wilson in town.
I don't like that.
Traded
at all.
one Wilson for another.
Literally, they traded one Wilson for another. But yeah, you had your Wilson, first. Yes, starter Wilson. You saw your first defensive player taken pick 14, I believe, or pick 15, one of the two. But yeah, it just shows you how much of an offensive weapon heavy class this was for all the teams that were involved in the top 15 or so picks. But I think the biggest surprise that nobody really saw coming at all was the Atlanta Falcons taking Michael Penix at pick number 8 when they famously had signed Kirk O'Change to a massive contract deal just days before the draft too. And everybody was like, all right, Atlanta's not going to take a quarterback. They have their quarterback now going forward, assuming Kirk stays healthy. And then that happens, and it's like, oh, does, and especially my thought, and I'm sure Nate's thought at the same time too, was, do teams start panicking now because that's one less quarterback that was not supposed to be picked that high, taken off the board? Do you now see teams start to panic and try to trade up for the next pick? Because if they did it, who else was going to take a quarterback right before, especially Denver and Minnesota at 11 and 12, who got their quarterback at that time? But Falcons, what are you doing? That's really what everybody is saying. Yeah, politely, what are you doing? And I still don't get the move.
It's even crazier. It's even crazier when you realize that Michael Penix is older in terms of like getting drafted.
Yes.
And so not only did they draft a second quarterback to follow behind Kirk in theory, or even if he's starting, whatever, but he's starting on the older end. And if he is coming in to sit behind Kirk, why? Like
it's not like you're drafting a 22-year-old right out of college to, like Jordan Love, like to sit for a couple years and then eventually start whenever your starting quarterback moves on or gets benched or anything like that. It's
all the other quarterbacks that were in there that obviously like Caleb Williams and, Jaden Daniels and whatnot, those got taken earlier, or those two got taken earlier, but like still, like at least they made sense if they are going to sit. Caleb Williams isn't, but but like if I guess I don't remember, where did Jaden Daniels go?
The Commies.
Washington, yep.
Yeah, good chance he starts there, I guess. But like, even if they were going to sit behind whoever they got for quarterback, that one would make more sense because, like, I'll give him a couple years to grow into the role.
Right.
Not that Michael Penix
when their from him's contract runs out.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, not that youth is a huge part of the game in the NFL. What is a bonkers move? Even made more so by the fact you're like confirmed by the fact that afterwards, when they showed the clip on Twitter or whatever of like the GM talking to whoever, you can just tell he's like explaining the move. Like, yeah, that's probably not what you wanted to do.
Right. And it's, I don't know what they're doing. And, if Atlanta didn't have Arthur Smith last year, they probably were better, could have been better than what they were. Considering how good Bijan Robinson is going to be, and Kyle Pitts is still technically pretty good. He just hasn't been used a lot, but Atlanta has weapons. They're drafted of that pick doesn't really make sense going forward after you just signed Kirko to a huge deal.
As long as Kyle Pitts takes off this year, my fantasy team will be happy.
I think you and every other fantasy manager out there.
I don't give a damn who starts at quarterback for Atlanta. I don't cheer for Atlanta. However, I cheer for Kyle Pitts. So
yes.
I think it came out that the Falcons let Kirk Cousins know they were drafting a quarterback in the first round as they were on the clock to make that pick.
It's
which is
such a wild move.
There was apparently a conversation that happened with Kirk where they're like, yeah, at some point we're probably going to like draft a quarterback of the future, to sit behind you. But it was never like, hey,
it's going to be
first round pick this year.
Yeah, it's different because Spencer Rattler got taken at some point, but it's not like a Spencer Rattler who gets taken in the third round or something like that later on in the draft. It's you're literally the number 8 overall pick of the draft. But
bonkers.
Yeah, that was outside of that. I mean, unless you were a fan of a certain team, I guess that was really the only big mind-blowing draft wacko thing that happened. At least from a, we'll kind of quickly talk about our teams here. I know Nate and I, overall, I think we feel pretty good about the quarterbacks that we took and that we got. Minnesota's probably a little bit more clear of who's going to start a quarterback than Denver. But overall, it's not really I'm pleased with it, especially, when Denver did trade for Zach Wilson days before the draft as well. And I get why they did it. And it's, long haul, big brain move. You traded a 6th round pick for, like, the Jets essentially swapped a 7th round draft pick. The Jets are going to pay half of his salary too. So like you get a former number 1 overall quarterback for, half the salary that he's on. And if things don't work out, it's not like you're having to do what you did with Russ and pay him $85 million in dead money if it doesn't work out. So
I think the real question, Andy, is do you know if your quarterback room finds mayonnaise to be spicy?
No, it's pretty light.
Zach Wilson and Bo Nix, just saying.
And Jarrett Stidham, they did release Ben DiNucci today, which makes a lot of sense. So he's probably going to go back to the USFL or UFL, whatever it is now. Or he might get picked up on another practice squad.
He's going to go play some rock ball.
Outside of that, yes, Zach, our quarterback room is extremely white.
Mayonnaise. There's nothing wrong with that. I would like. I just thought it was fun.
It's a good-looking quarterback room in terms of overall handsomeness between Bo Nix and supposed mom lover Zach Wilson. So
I was gonna say, just watch out to all the hot moms in Denver.
So Denver has got going for them is they got a pretty good, handsome-looking quarterback room.
It's a good thing that being a quarterback in the NFL is entirely predicated on your looks.
Absolutely. I mean,
it worked for Jimmy G for quite a while. Like,
I mean, Jimmy GQ, like, come on. But outside of that, I won't go too much into Denver's picks. But I wasn't upset with their drafts at all this year. They did want to go out and get a receiver that Bo Nix did play with his senior year. So I think that's good for down at Denver rebuilding their young receiver room. Is if you're going to start your rookie quarterback next year, even if Troy Franklin doesn't start, Bo Nix at least has chemistry with a receiver that he's already played with going into the future. So yeah, not upset with Denver's draft. It's just the big question will be Zach Wilson or Bo Nix, and then the sneaky dark horse Jarrett Stidham. But, I saw the last 2 games of the season where he played, and I don't like that future if he's a starting quarterback.
I just also love the sneaky. What did you just say? The sneaky what?
Sneaky dark horse.
Sneaky dark horse of Jarrett Stidham. Yeah. Yep, that's what
the people are saying.
I wish the NFL would do like walkout songs when like quarterbacks would come, like the WWE, like so his could be literally Dark Horse by Katy Perry. just you wait, guys.
My time's coming. But yeah, I'll pass it to you guys. Your thoughts on your team's drafts and draft in general.
I can jump in. It was, I think you had mentioned, Andy, in our group chat that like the first 3 or 4 picks were going to be pretty predictable, and then after that it
straight chalk.
Yeah, a little bit uncertain at the very least, and yeah, that's kind of how it went. Where it was, the first 3 picks, there was a little question on exactly how Drake May and Jaden Daniels were going to fall, but they're going to be in that top 3 anyways, and yeah, it was
Tyler of Duty gets a wide receiver.
Yeah, it is wild that Marvin Harrison Jr. dropped all the way to 4th. Like, it makes sense, but
right,
like just that caliber player. He was pretty much being touted as number 1 overall.
Mm-hmm. And if any of those previous 3 teams between the Bears, Patriots, and Commanders, that if they did not need a quarterback, certainly Marvin Harrison is going to one of those 3 teams.
Yep.
But like I said at the beginning, this was an NFL draft where the shape of the NFL is now going towards QB heavy franchise star, and you're looking for that next Patrick Mahomes that you can pluck and hope that it works out. But yeah, he's going to be good. The issue is Kyler is still throwing the ball for the Cardinals. For now.
Just wait until the new Call of Duty comes out.
Well, and then Josh Rosen is still available somewhere.
Verdansk is going to come back, and Kyler's going to take some leave, I think.
To your point, though, Nate,
I heard Ben DiNucci's available too.
Yeah, I think your biggest. There was actually a big question within the first 4 rounds was why did Chicago get like 20 minutes to make pick 1?
Yeah, that's
what was going on, guys.
Like, ooh, who are we gonna?
It's like weird. Who are we gonna take? I wonder. And then we like
Michael.
Yeah,
Spencer Rattler.
Hot take. I'm curious to see.
That would have been worse than
Jeffrey Sims out of the University of Nebraska.
Jeffrey Sims.
No. No.
You know what? I think Jeff Sims was a stand-up teammate, but if they would have drafted him, that would have 100% been a situation where it's like the bad girl situation where it's like, I can fix her. That's 100% what that would have been. That would have been that type of pick. And you don't do that at pick 1. I'm sorry.
Bears making galaxy brain moves, but
they know something we don't.
I will say, like, the other surprise getting in the top 10, aside from the Falcons, just chucking darts and seeing what sticks, was the Chargers taking like the offensive tackle at 5, because they
do need a tackle. They desperately need wide receivers more.
Right.
They traded away all of them.
Yep.
I don't know. There was a quote.
Mike Williams is coming back off his ACL tear or whatever, and that's all they've got.
You got Quentin Johnson, wide receiver number 1 for the Chargers now.
Yep.
Didn't well, and then there was a quote.
And they don't have Eckler anymore. Eckler got traded.
Oh, that's right. But there was a quote that came out from Harbaugh that was like, it was basically a Harbaugh way of saying it all starts up front, but it was all
Mhm.
about like the meat of the linemen or something. I was like, what
Yeah.
are you talking about?
Jim
But then you
Harbaugh,
see,
baby.
I was gonna say, like, he's a good coach. I'll give him that. I guess. I mean, we'll see how he does with the Chargers. Let's hold that. But he's a good coach in football, regardless. But like, what off the wall stuffs, man? What is he
Well,
doing?
his bar is Brandon Staley, so if you can clear that bar, he might be a better coach than him. Oh,
Maybe.
I will miss Brandon Staley though. He was so much fun to watch. Best, like, just destroy end of game management. Top notch at it.
But yeah, other than that, that past that pick in Atlanta wasn't terribly shocked by the outcome. I was surprised that I mean, just kind of from the Viking side of things, that Dallas Turner, we were able to pick him up at like 18 or whatever, or 20 or. But
my question to you and Vikings fans was, do you think trading up one spot would have made a difference to get JJ? Or was it trying to avoid Denver trying to get ahead of Minnesota?
yeah, it was definitely trying to
Okay.
get ahead of Denver, and probably Oakland, I think, was
Probably,
in the mix for a quarterback. It was definitely trying to just kind of a little insurance policy that nothing.
They would get him.
They got the guy they wanted.
Yeah.
So then my question to you, Nate, as a Vikings fan, is, and I know we talked about it in the text, but I don't remember, and we text all the time, so I'm not scrolling all the way back to find it, is, did you get the guy you want? I mean, granted, obviously, you probably would have taken someone like Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams, obviously. But in the scenario that you guys were in, you got J.J. McCarthy. I didn't think that was a bad pick at all. Is that who you wanted, or were you banking on like Michael Penix would have been a good pick too, or who were you aiming for there?
Yeah, no, I mean, my moonshot pick was like we would trade up to 3 and Jaden Daniels would still be there. So that's like my 0.5% chance. If everything in the world went the Vikings' way for 10 seconds there, that would have been the pick I was hoping for. But
even then, based on how it turned out, you would have traded up to 3 just to not get him anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I wasn't too, and I could be completely wrong on this take, but I wasn't too impressed with like a Drake May trading up to number 3 for Drake May. Didn't really, I don't know, move the scales for me. I was a little sad that Michael Penix did get taken by Atlanta before the Vikings had a chance to grab him, but I don't know, it was kind of tough because Penix does have the injury history and like the just the age, and like not that huge a deal if you're going to be starting him right away, unlike what Atlanta's going to be doing, but it's still, a factor in the process where you have those extra, 3-4 years that you can kind of mold him and kind of make him the system QB that you want. So that was kind of my Jaden Daniels, then Michael Penix, and JJ McCarthy was probably like just a half tier below that. So I was, Jaden Daniels was probably, the not going to happen, but it would be nice. And then, I'm very intrigued by the JJ McCarthy pick.
I think it's going to work out. I think to your point of Michael Penix, I'd actually switch personally. This is obviously for me. I'd switch the rankings just in the sense of like, JJ McCarthy, I think, is the known quantity coming out of college. He won the championship where Penix didn't. And you can say I think JJ McCarthy played a more complete game in the college playoff or the championship. I think you guys got the better quarterback, and that's nothing against Penix by nature. I just think there's a lot of question marks around him, where with JJ McCarthy, it's like, even if he doesn't start right away, you've got somebody that you can certainly mold into your play style.
Yeah,
really well.
That's what I do like about the pick is he has that intangible of just kind of being, a proven winner. And I mean, at some point you can't necessarily teach that. And
as much as it sucks to say coming from Michigan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
But I don't know. I've kind of talking to some other Vikings fans where it's just like, it's a solid pick. And I mean, only time's going to really tell with how it looks, 5 years down the road. But I don't know. The Vikings don't need necessarily. It'd be great if we drafted the next Patrick Mahomes, but we don't necessarily need that. We just need to, kind of like Nebraska, a decent game manager that can get the ball to our playmakers. Like we've got Justin Jefferson and T.J. Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, and like we just need a guy who's not going to get crushed in the backfield, can make a quick snap decision,
Exactly.
get the ball where it needs to go.
Exactly.
So he's coming into a good situation, and it seems like our quarterback just coaching room is really good. So I'm hoping they'll be able to mold him into kind of that system type QB that we need. So that's the hope. We'll see what happens, but I'm certainly optimistic, and it's exciting. We it's always kind of cool to, I mean, Andy and I, it's always cool to get that new blood, kind of fresh player, see just what happens. It could all fall apart, but there's also that hopeful chance that it really comes together. So
and you're not paying $85 million for a guy that's not even on your team.
Yep.
And you guys didn't have any drama around the picks either. Like, yeah, Andy, you've got like all the cap hit, but that's not really drama. It's like, hey, this was for the betterment of the team. Like, I think universally was agreed upon.
Yes.
Unlike a team that I know of that drafted their quarterback when they had a quarterback that, in theory, was still in a pretty good point of his prime. Turns out that experiment worked out for the Eagles, but just saying, that was pretty. People were like, "What are they doing?" So glad.
Yeah, you got the biggest quads in the NFL, man.
I know. Yeah. So unless you've got any more, Nate, I guess that'll be a perfect segue for me.
I'll just say the biggest signing might be that we to look at is we drafted a kicker. So. We'll see.
That was great, by the way. That was great.
He's
the Bears
most
drafted the best
kicker
specialist
out of college, so I'm sure we'll find a way to ruin him. But
the Bears drafted the best specialist in the draft.
They did.
They might not even need to use him if Caleb Williams is what he is.
We'll see.
If he's not, though, they got a really good insurance
policy. They have a great insurance policy.
My hot take is that I don't know if Caleb Williams is going to translate to the NFL as well.
The Bears they're still the Bears. They still have the same problems that they had with Justin Fields. They just now have Caleb Williams.
Yep.
It should be interesting though with him and Rome Odunze.
Yeah, that pairing's going to be really good.
Yeah,
I'm a little jealous they got him, but
yeah.
I mean, he wasn't going to fall that far in the draft either, but I mean, he's a good receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Williams to Odunze though, what an awesome Nate, it sounds good when you hear it kind of thing.
Right.
I can't think of the word for that, but anyway, I'll be quick about mine because mine was the only real surprise for Eagles fans that follow them is that they did something they haven't done since 2002, and that was draft a cornerback at round 1 or pick one. Sorry, same diff, but they drafted Quinion Mitchell, which I didn't know. I'll be honest, I didn't know anything about this guy, but I saw him being graded really high in earlier ones. I'm like, okay, well, that's good. Like, he's being graded really well. Then I went back and watched some highlight films that people put on YouTube, literally 5 minutes after the pick went live, when people were like, Philadelphia Eagles pick. Like, okay. So I was watching that, and what surprised me the most about this guy was not so much how good he is. That did help. I was like, holy cow. But then that he went to Toledo.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? So not only did he go to Toledo, but then Saban apparently, they said that there was a moment where they thought he'd go into the portal because he was too good for Toledo or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, that's the player I want. Like, if Nick Saban says that's a player he wants, then it's probably a pretty good one.
Right.
I mean, so. And then, unfortunately, really the only other pick, there's really two other ones that I thought were really. I mean, I think the Eagles drafted really well. I think ESPN rated them at an A. They got everything for positions of need except for, according to them, an offensive tackle, which in my head I was like, we don't really need that.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles don't really need that. They will, but I think they'll be able to get it next year. I don't think they need it this year. But now I unfortunately have to cheer for an Iowa player. Because the Eagles did even more so crazy and drafted another cornerback in Cooper DeJean from Iowa.
Good.
He's very good. And the good thing with him is that he was listed as a cornerback, but he plays pretty much anything in the backfield. And if anybody watched any Eagles games last year, especially in the back half of the year, it was very obvious that the secondary was by far the weakest point of the team. And so later followed up by Howie Roseman of the Eagles saying, "Oh, well, we don't draft based on positions of need." That's a lie. But there, when you look at it too, the way that the draft fell for them, that they were probably the best players around. So it kind of worked out both ways. It was also crazy to see that Quinion Mitchell, they didn't trade up or down or anything. They got him at 22, and a lot of people were like, that seems like he should have gone higher. But again, going to the point of the first, 15, 16 picks were offensive players. It was like at that point, I think it was well known what everybody else needed in the draft, and it wasn't a cornerback like the Eagles needed. So overall, I'm pleased with the draft. Obviously, the draft is never a guaranteed success for anybody, that even for rounds 1 and 2, but I think it'll be exciting to see what they come up with. Yeah. Outside of that, it was pretty typical draft, I guess, if you will. Nothing wild.
As a team that has formerly drafted a cornerback in the first round, I support your decision.
Yeah, that's a good point. Oh, I guess the other one that I should talk about real quick, I guess, was Jeremiah Trotter Jr., which the only reason that's cool, quote unquote, is because Jeremiah Trotter Sr. played for the Eagles. So it's there's the Trotter pipeline is right there, basically. So
wasting a draft pick on family ties? I don't know.
But hold on. That one was a round 5 pick. So once you get past like round 3, the need of them to be really, really good is not expected. Now, if he becomes really, really good, and he's a linebacker, so if he pans out to be the greatest linebacker the Eagles have in the next 10 years, great. Great value pick. I mean, it worked out for a certain center that the Eagles had, so it's not unheard of.
Right.
But it's probably not likely.
But I think if we're wrapping up the NFL segment, we'll switch to the college side of things. And the biggest, at least notable thing that happened in college football, I mean, everybody's having their spring games now, but Nebraska did have their spring game finally this 2 weekends ago. Yeah, 2 weekends ago. And boys, we got a quarterback that we need to chug the Kool-Aid on. I
would agree.
And I know most fans are gonna be, you gotta let it, he's a freshman, you gotta let him settle in, calm down. But even if you didn't watch the spring game, you can go back and just watch his highlights from the spring game. I mean, it's astonishing just how comfortable, natural, just like how easygoing he just makes it look to like just be in the pocket and run an offense and run plays. And we saw all three main quarterbacks in the game between him, Heinrich, and Daniel Kalen, the other freshman recruit quarterback. And if you want to, obviously it's, if you're comparing Dylan and Daniel together, obviously Dylan is going to take the cake. But if you want at least another, like, if you're going to look at another freshman starting at quarterback at Nebraska with Daniel, I mean, there's a drastic difference between how they both look in that quarterback situation. And by no means did Daniel look terrible either. I mean, Dylan also threw an interception. Now, granted, it was in and out of the receiver's hands, but the ball was behind him. So, I mean, freshman mistake there too. But, just watching Dylan run an offense versus watching Daniel kind of run an offense, you can just tell one is just above the other in terms of talent, skill level, and all of that. And Dylan's first touchdown pass, I mean, I don't know the last time we've seen a 16-yard just lob to the corner of the end zone, and the receiver, got open, and you take all of this with a grain of salt too. I mean, Nebraska was not playing,
Nebraska was playing Nebraska. Remember?
Yes.
Remember.
And, I think Rule had said that, I think 4 or 5 of the veteran starters on defense were not playing anyways. But, defensive wise, Nebraska is returning 8 to 9 return like starters from last year to this season. So that same defense you're going to see last year, most likely going to be the same thing this year. Production wise, who knows? I mean, we'll talk about that more later in the year. But regardless, even if Dylan was going against a scout defense, I mean, he just made that kind of just 16-yard lob to the corner of the end zone just look so easy. Kind of like just how you do it in Madden. You just press a button, obviously, but that's what it looks like to Dylan. Is like you just go back and he's just pressing buttons, and like the throws are there, they're on target, right accuracy, right power, and all of that. And then you had on the other end, you had the 50-yard bomb to Jalen Lloyd, and Jalen Lloyd is probably going to be a breakout wide receiver this year. And then you have your transfers of Banks and Nahor, I think, is the other transfer wide receiver. As well. And then Jacoby Barnesney, I think, is the incoming freshman wide receiver. He had a 80, 90-yard kickoff return, got tackled by Alvano, so a little upsetting there. But get tackled by the kicker. But he's going to be another huge freshman wide receiver to, block in on and everything. And, if you kind of go around the whole offensive scheme, the running back room is probably going to have to be the biggest question mark because you have Ramir, you have Emmett, you have the transfer Oregon running back Dante Dowell, I think is Dontel or similar to that name, but he broke off like a 45-yard rushing touchdown too, and I compare him kind of like to Amani Cross. He is a big power running back. He's got some speed, but I definitely think if he does take over the starting role, I think he is going to be like just a heavy pound and ground workhorse. And I think that's what Nebraska lacked last year too. Now, obviously with injuries to Gabe and Ramir and so on and so forth, you had to play Emmett Johnson as a freshman. You had to play Anthony Grant and so on. But Nebraska, what they lacked last year was if you can't run with the quarterback, you need to rely on your powerhouse running back to, get you those yards, because 3rd and 8 versus 2nd and 5 on a 5-yard run every play, totally different situations that you're looking at is what your next play call is. And so offense is going to be fun. Tight end wise, Fedoni looked good for the first couple of series that he did play before they sat him. Forkerture still looked really good. There was, I'd have to look up his name, but there's another tight end that they're really high on that had a couple of big catches in the play. But yeah, offense is going to be fun. Alvano did miss some kicks. I think he missed like a 35 and a 40-yard field goal try attempt. And Buschini did not look great as well. So I think the biggest question marks was our special list going in is, can they perform how they perform? Alvano still has the job, but there's another kicker that's coming in to kind of compete for the job. So I think that'll hopefully help push Alvano, because Alvano is good. We have seen him make 50-yard kicks and drill them.
He just needs to do it consistently.
Correct. And that's the part that is the problem right now is the consistency. And same with Buschini. I mean, we know Buschini can boot it, and then he'll have 20-yard shanks. And it's like, well, dude, that's kind of what got us in trouble last year is you're relying on your defense to, if you want to flip the field, but you're flipping it 20 yards. I mean, Nebraska's defense did save us a lot last year, but you can't expect to win, especially now with 4 new powerhouse teams coming into the Big Ten. I mean, you can't expect to win the defensive battle every single game, especially with Oregon and Dan Lanning coming in. I mean, they ain't going to play a defensive game. But main overall scope is chuck the Kool-Aid on Dylan, because like I said, just go watch his highlights from the spring game. And I mean, it's amazing how the screen passes that Nebraska can never complete or block for. I mean, he reads those. He gets the ball out so quick. The receiver's in stride. He hits them in stride. It's not behind the receiver. It's not at the receiver's feet. I mean, it's in stride with the receiver at his chest, and then those go off for 10 yards, which Nebraska has never been able to do. We always get tackled 5 yards behind the line.
I think the other thing of note with the screen passes, though, too, is that our offensive line and subsequently everybody else that's not involved with catching the ball was blocking. Like it's right. like okay, our linemen. Granted, they should. A lot of our linemen are veterans at this point in terms of college football, so they should take a step forward even more so, or they should at least be able to do well. But to your point, though, my whole thing watching just the highlights was watching Dillon is what it's like when you see like, oh, that's what that looks like. Like we haven't seen a competent I shouldn't say competent, but we haven't seen a overly confident / competent quarterback behind there for a while. For certainly not for Rule's tenure, obviously, but like, the difference that it makes. And I mean, I would even say that Adrian Martinez was a competent quarterback. His problem was kind of twofold. He couldn't finish out the games.
It was the guy in charge.
It wasn't always entirely his fault either. But it's just like there is so much.
It was Nebraska relying on Mario Verduzco to teach him to be cool.
That was the other point that I was going to make. Actually, not him.
He looked
but,
good with the cigar.
Yeah, I did. Great looking group of coaching staff. Not really good at coaching.
The other point though is that Glenn Thomas came in and he's the quarterback coach, and not necessarily to Dillon. Oh, by the way, speaking of quarterback coaching, Dillon mentioned that he was going to get through finals and then he was going to go practice with Patrick Mahomes and his quarterback coach. And it's like, that's probably a good thing.
That's immediately the first thing I picked up on watching Dillon out there is his cadences and how he runs, gets the plays in is all very Mahomes-like. It's, if you watch Mahomes, I mean, he does the hands over the helmet thing, which is going to be new for college football this year, is they will have the in-helmet communications thing. So that you're going to see a lot more with college quarterbacks now.
Thanks, Michigan.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Michigan. You sped up that process a lot.
Can't wait for that, though, to be honest.
But yeah, I mean, it's, watching him get in the plays, he does that little hand thing like Mahomes does, like, here, get the play in, get the players in, like, tell me the play. Just how he kind of moves on the field, how he just kind of sets up and everything. All very Mahomes-like of how just his cadences are. And like you said, Zach, I mean, if you're training with Patrick Mahomes, you're probably going to pick up on some of those tendencies and how he plays quarterback. And, Mahomes may never have, he certainly does not have the best throwing style out there of all the NFL quarterbacks, but it's Mahomes. I mean, you give credit where credit's due. And if you're going to learn,
Andy, just because he doesn't have the greatest, I mean, have you watched them play?
No, Zach, I have certainly never watched Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs twice a year dismantle my team.
Just saying, like, he might not have the prettiest throwing motion or anything, but it obviously works.
But it works.
So.
No, but yes, that is that. And then, I mean, I skipped over Heinrich too. I mean, in the 3 or 4 months since Glenn Thomas came in, I mean, Heinrich did not look bad at all.
That was my other point. It would have made so much of a difference if he looked like that last year.
Yes.
And he started, not,
once again, he threw a tight, like 45-yard touchdown to the corner of the end zone where like
good.
That ball has to be in the exact spot for the receiver to get it, or else you don't score a touchdown there. So, I mean, Heinrich, he's still a very good lethal running threat, but his throwing motion and just mechanics in the past 3 to 4 months since they brought Glenn Thomas in is just drastically improved for him. So, it obviously will be a difference if Heinrich does get in for Dillon in terms of a game time situation. Is, how has Heinrich, because you have a bigger sample size for Heinrich than you do for Dillon. So if Heinrich does ever have to come in, it's like, has he improved from last year to this year? So on and so forth. But yeah, it's going to be, and I forgot that at the tight end room as well as Carter Nelson's going to come in the summer and fall. And, who knows if he actually will play, but he's obviously a very multi-talented athlete that everybody is insanely high on. So, I mean, tight end room is looking really good right now. We got to get them the ball. Fedoni has to catch and block. That's the 2 biggest things he's got to work on.
I think the 2 things that a tight end is supposed to do.
Yeah,
if he doesn't block, he needs to catch. If he catches, he doesn't need to like.
Right.
Come on, guy.
But obviously the Kool-Aid was always gonna be there, but like after watching the spring game, it's just like open the floodgates. Just let all the Kool-Aid come down because Rule knows what he's doing.
I was wearing this white shirt the day of the spring game just because like we were cleaning our house. I had to clean this multiple times because it was actually red for a while with Kool-Aid. Boo.
I wasn't gonna say it.
I don't care how bad that was. It was true.
But yeah, unless you guys have any more spring take games, or I guess takes on the spring game, I should say. But surprisingly, up until right now, I think Nebraska's only had 4 transfers into the portal from the end of spring session. The biggest one was probably Chief Borders, just because Rule had talked about the past week or so, that like how much of an improvement and jump he's made into a potential starting spot, and then he transfers out. So Rule had nothing to say but nice things to say to him, and I think that was probably the most surprising transfer. Outside of that, I don't think anybody else besides kind of the 3 or 4 guys have transferred, which a testament to, Rule and just his culture of, if you want to compare it to, that guy across the border doing things over at another said school for clicks and fame, so you will, and trying to build a roster on a transfer portal. But I hope we beat them this year.
But speaking of, Kool-Aid flowing, Joel Klatt came through clutch for us Kool-Aid fans.
Yeah.
Because he decided to rank us in his preseason top 25 at 22. Like, my dude, no. If Nebraska was a stock, it's 100%
Zach, we have
one that
Dylan
you hold
Raiola.
on. I understand that. And look, I get it. I get it. I am just trying to be as hyped as much as everyone else is. But, hear me out. You don't sell your stock when there's just a little bit of a bump. You let it age a little bit and go up a little bit more before you dump it. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska is that stock. Just saying.
Yeah,
this is not financial advice.
We are the nation leader in them.
Zach, we won I don't know how many since the last national title. I mean, probably 25, 26 offseason natties. Like,
well, I would also like to point out though, if we're talking about the spring game specifically, remember Nebraska played really well, but their opponent was also Nebraska. So
it was scout team defense, so it wasn't what you will see on defense. And Gifford and those guys were in street clothes with their jerseys on the sideline. So they were obviously not going to play. I don't think Rule had any intention of playing them, but like I said, you have 8 to 9 returners on defense from last year, which was the team last year. So that's a good start. The only disadvantage you have going next year now is, teams have a year of Tony White's 3-3-5 defense to scout and look at now and try to scheme around that going forward. But I'd
rather have that than have Tony White have gone somewhere else.
Correct.
So,
and Trev paid him before he pieced. So I guess thanks, Trev.
Yeah. Thanks, Trev.
What a hero.
Many are saying.
Many. I don't know about many, but some might be saying.
With that, though, I think switch now because football news I think is pretty much going to be dead unless something major happens in OTAs or rookie mini camps, all of that going forward until about probably end of July, August when camps pick back up again.
Getting extended at some point in the summer, but that'll be
maybe.
Oh, I guess we've got the schedule release coming up the next couple of weeks.
True.
Oh yeah.
So that's going to be more just 100%.
Yeah, your team is playing in Brazil, Zach.
Yeah.
I think that one.
I'm good with it. Chances are I'll be working anyway, so I won't get to watch it. So, yay.
Roger is going for the cutthroat and just going to be like, we're going to play every single day of the week.
Oh, speaking of Roger, the speculation. I know this is in NFL, but go back real quick. There's, I guess, speculation now that they're going to cut a preseason game and add an 18th game. So that should be interesting to see if they actually pass that going forward.
Have that preseason.
I mean, I think I think that's been speculated for a while, but I think now it's talks are actually ramping up to do it, and it's okay. Then I hope players get a second bye week because 18 games
you're gonna have to. Yeah,
I feel like you have to if you don't. But then also it's just it's weird because now people are all I shouldn't say people are complaining, but you have all these people talking about how records don't mean the same things they used to because there's more games, and I get it, but it's also I don't know.
I mean,
I like the NFL
you
because
have to add a second bye, especially if
you have to.
They want to start doing more international games. I mean, you can't expect them to play a game in Germany and then come back 6 days later and be like, "Oh, everything's fine. Here's your, Saturday night game now." That they want to start doing. It's like if you're going to make teams go play international, I mean, you have to have them come back to a bye at least.
I agree. I think it's crazy that it's. I love the NFL and I love college football because of how like lightning in a bottle the season feels. It sucks when it's over, but like it feels like the season of the NFL isn't like it doesn't feel like it's too long. But I think it's also because we aren't getting inundated with games all throughout the week. It's on the weekends, except I guess Thursday and Mondays. But you know what I mean? Like that's one game. Whereas like with the NBA or like the NHL or whatever, like there's all these games all throughout MLB especially. It's like, oh, we're playing a series this week and then we're playing a series. We're playing a doubleheader on Thursday. It's like, holy cow.
Right.
And, if you really love the sport, then I get it. You're going to watch it like crazy. But when you're like us and we like to watch a bunch of different sports, it makes it tough. Whereas like with football, it's like, oh, I have to at least designate watching my team play. But I don't know. I think adding more games is going to be great because it's like, oh, more football, but then it becomes like, then it just feels more product than sport at that point. I mean, we already know it is, but still,
both the NFL and college football are going to have like brand new things going into next season. I mean, college football probably the biggest by far with adding the 12-team playoff, and then all these conference realignments are going to happen next year. And then the NFL adding the new kickoff rule and a new international Friday night game. I mean, it's going to be, NFL probably not as much as additions that we know of right now, but just next year when college football and NFL all kick off, it's going to be brand new kind of like quote unquote eras of football. Not the NFL probably not so much unless they, like I said, add something drastically huge this summer. But definitely college football is going to be a brand new era. And then if the NCAA, they're in talks of, doing kind of the pay for play contracts with schools now so that going forward that the NCAA can recognize that these universities can pay for NIL stuff now. And so, I mean, that's not beneficial, but that's kind of like what the bills are going through Congress right now is have the NCAA recognize universities to pay for NIL. That way you don't have to, keep doing this sidestep third-party stuff anymore. It's the NCAA can just formally come out and say, like, yeah, this is NIL now, which is the way that college athletics is going for sure.
Because that's always worked out really well. The NCAA stepping in saying, we're going to put our hands into this.
Yes.
That's always worked out.
As a nonprofit, you are right. Nonprofit.
$1 billion nonprofit.
$1 billion nonprofit. But with that, switch into the thick of the Orange Ball playoffs. We'll get to Nate in a second.
This is going to be Nate's segment, to be fair.
Yeah, pretty much. Since the last time we talked, the Bulls technically were still in the playoffs. No longer in the playoffs. As nobody was surprised. Personally, from my close standpoint, one, I'm happy the Bulls season is over. They just needed to be done. But Alex, as the NBA gives out a more white man awards that they love to give out. Never heard of this award until he won it. But he won the Hustle Award Player of the Year for the NBA, which is an award for stats that don't necessarily show up in the stat box, but he makes great hustle plays for your team. Tell me a wider NBA award than that.
Hey, man, it's an NBA award. It's something.
It's an NBA award. I'm sure he will get probably first team all defense again. I'd imagine it's probably pretty hard not to get it. I'm sure, as we found out, Gobert, defensive player of the year. And then what we found out today, Joker won his third time MVP. No shock there, even though, like I said, Nate will get to his part of the dismantling of the Nuggets. But what else do we need to talk about? Oh, yeah. LeBron got his coach fired. So congrats to LeBron.
Yeah,
wonder who they're going to hire.
the head coach was the issue.
Yeah, like we've all been talking about, the reason the Lakers suck is because their head coach is bad and definitely not their roster construction.
If it's not Doc Rivers stepping in, I'm going to be real
I
sad.
know. And that we can
I
also
know it probably won't happen, but I need it.
we could talk about how the Bucks fired their coach that was doing so well to hire Doc Rivers and then get kicked out of the first round of the playoffs. Now, yes, having Giannis be out for that, not a good deal. But
Still,
Dame was out for half their games too.
Yeah. not a great deal to have your two franchise players be out.
still, I mean,
Still,
that's a Doc Rivers
Very
special.
questionable hire.
They went under 500 in the games that Doc Rivers coached, where Giannis and Dame were still playing.
So, congrats, Milwaukee Bucks fans. I hope that whatever that coach was doing before was worth it.
I mean, obviously they got to they won the finals out of it. So I mean, regardless, they could suck for the next 20 years, and I guarantee you, Bucks fans be like, you know what,
Right. What else has happened? Watching the 76ers lose is always fun.
Yes.
Watching Embiid coming up with a new injury excuse every single game. Classic.
Is he the East version of Anthony Davis? Anthony Street Clothes Davis.
Yeah.
I never really put two and two together until just now, but I feel like that's the comparison there.
Right. I feel bad for the Pelicans. What are you gonna do against the Thunder? Maybe try your best, I guess, but
it is so wild to me too, because I feel like the Thunder just a couple years ago were not good, and then all of a sudden they're good now, and it's like, what? How do they do it? How do teams do this? I'm a Suns fan.
How they did it?
40 first-round picks.
Yeah.
Last
Too.
3 years.
I mean, yeah, no, that's good. That's good.
Your draft capital.
It's just it. Well, and I mean, before we let Nate do his whole thing, because he's got the most exciting outtake in the NBA right now. As a Suns fan, I'm in the same boat as you, Andy. It was nice that the season finally wrapped up, because two things are coming out of it now. One, the Suns can finally figure it out whether they're going to fire Frank Vogel or not, which, looking back at some of it, now where he's like, I think he's more of a defensive minded coach or whatever, but they didn't have any offensive identity, which is bonkers when you have Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and then Bradley Beal.
Durant?
Yeah, I about said Kevin Booker. It's like you have those three, and the rest of the roster wasn't terribly made up. I mean, there were some questionable spots, but it was okay, that should be a championship caliber potential team. And it was just squandered. So, if Frank Vogel gets fired, I would be fine with it, depending on who they go after. I don't know if they'll do it, but I was glad to see that the Suns season finally ended, and they got swept. They got swept hard by the T-Wolves. But the good news is now, this will tie into what Nate's probably going to follow up with, is that they are also showing that maybe it wasn't just a fluke that the Suns played bad, and that they got swept. It's looking like the Wolves are the real deal. And with that, on to you, Nate.
I will say that the Thunder probably did well because of the What a Pro Wants commercial.
Oh,
although if we could stop seeing that commercial
every commercial break,
if we could stop seeing that commercial, though, that'd be really cool.
That would be really cool if they.
I just love how also at the end, before we get to Nate's thing, we're just gonna drag this out as long as we can, so he can't ever say anything about it. I love how at the end he's like, "Oh, a little flat," and I'm like, "Both of you sounded terrible."
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, but I'm not a singing pro, but neither are they. So. Saying.
And with that, to college basketball. All right.
Yeah, thankfully there's nothing else going on in the NBA. So
no, Nate, we'll let you rant.
I will try to keep.
It's not really a rant.
You can already hear it in the background though. He's like, "Wolves back!" You can just hear it.
I will say that I am sorry that our teams had to meet in the first round, Zach.
Don't be.
I think it was better for all parties involved.
No, I am glad that it's the Wolves that at least beat us and not some other team. I mean, the Thunder would have been the only other one. I'd be like, you know what, that's fair. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But no, the Wolves look like the real deal, to be honest.
Yeah, you could have lost to LeBron.
That's true.
Thank God. Honestly, the Suns probably would have pulled that one out, given us hope, and then all of a sudden be like, "Oh right, we still kind of suck."
But no, I mean, playoffs overview has been. There haven't been a whole lot of like upset surprises. I mean, the Pacers over the Bucks, but the Bucks didn't have like half their team in the last 2 games.
I would hope for a team that averages almost 100, more than 100 points a game would kind of win a series.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was maybe 2 or 3 games the entire season the Pacers did not score 100, which wild.
Yep.
The Bulls were one of them. Just like the Bulls swept the Wolves.
They're down right now, and
look who's winning
in the third quarter, though.
Sandstorm's actually winning. But...
Yes, you're right.
Sandstorm always wins.
But no, it has been a magical run so far for the Timberwolves. They're doing well. There is still a long ways to go. It is a full 7-game series against the defending champions. So I am not going to count those chickens till or count those eggs. However that phrase goes, I'm not gonna
don't
sit here and get too confident just yet. But I mean, to the Wolves' credit though, they have looked just dominant so far. They just hang on with their defense, and then they have a slew of guys that Anthony Edwards is likely going to get his on any given night, but everyone else around him, you could see, Mike Conley can go off for 20 plus, Carl can go off for 20 plus, Nickeil Alexander-Walker could go off for 20 plus, Naz Reid, 6th man of the year, could go off for 20 plus on any given night. And so it's I don't know. It's an interesting formula. They play really good, just team sound basketball, and it's really fun to watch. And it's exciting to see a team that has not seen a whole lot of success really ever in franchise history. We had the 2004 series where we made it to the Western Conference Finals, and then we didn't win a playoff series after that until this year. And
to be fair, you ran into prime Kobe and Shaq, so that's an acceptable loss to have. And Carl Malone.
Yeah, and they went down swinging, so it's like, but I was also, 8 at the time and not exactly aware of the world around me.
Who is this Kobe Bryant kid?
Oh, cool. That just made me feel super old. Thanks, Nate. Thanks. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. I'm here to help.
It goes to your point, though. It goes to your point, though. Like roster construction and roster management is huge, and I think the Wolves have that. I don't think any team necessarily has it down pat, but I think if you're going to make an argument for any team, they've certainly got to be top 3. They just, like I said, like I am glad in the sense that it's your team, only because I know you. So it's like, all right, I can give this one. I can give you this one. Especially because, the Eagles got a Super Bowl having to go over Minnesota some years ago. So maybe this is my karmic retribution at this point. But like, I'm okay with that because they're fun to watch. It'd be like I do if they make the finals. My guess is that the Celtics are probably going to be the ones they play against, and that'll be a tough matchup.
Yeah, I am genuinely like that's very, very, very far down the road if it occurs. But like, just the thought of that matchup is intriguing because both the Celtics and the Timberwolves play really good defense. They got guys that can score, and I think both the games they played in the regular season went to overtime. So I think it would just be very good basketball at the very least. I would be very, very excited by that prospect, but that. We'll see. We'll see
so
if it gets to that.
Who was your ideal championship matchup from the East? If it's obviously you probably don't want to play Boston. That would be a fun championship, though.
Yeah.
But if you have you're confident that like if the Wolves met this team in the championship, I would feel better about the Wolves winning it all.
I mean.
Anybody that's not the Celtics.
Yeah, it's going to sound a little little cocky there, but yeah, I mean, I think they would match up pretty well against just about all the others. I know Mitchell Robinson just went down for the Knicks, so they would have a little weaker post presence, which does not really bode well for them against Minnesota. Pacers would be interesting because I mean, like you said, they're a high scoring team.
They are a very high scoring team.
And I mean, it took their last game, it took Anthony Edwards with that crazy block against the backboard to seal the game in the last seconds. So that could be an interesting series.
Dude, the Celtics is Porzingis, is he out? I know he went out in game 1, but I don't know.
I thought he was out the rest of the year.
I think he's out the season. I thought he might be out the series.
Maybe it was the series.
But he might be back the next.
Intriguing matchup if he's out longer. See if the Celtics can. I mean, he obviously is still a good player, but he was a big part in the role for the Celtics too. So
makes me also wonder though, when he does come back, like there's this theory where, especially in playoffs, like your body and your mentality is, if you keep playing games and you stay in the motion, you might get hurt, but like you're gonna be able to keep going because you're in that framework of, we got to keep working. So when you take off time for injury for whatever reason, does that get you out of your rhythm? And so I'll be really curious to see if he bounces right back, when he comes back.
Yeah, I mean, luckily they have 80-year-old Al Horford locking down the paint for him.
I can only picture Al Horford in a Hawks uniform. I don't know if I can picture him in anything else.
Right. I picture him in a Florida Gators uniform.
Yeah, that too.
Joakim Noah back in the day, man.
Holy moly! There's an Al Horford. I was like, okay, yeah.
I was like, you know who he is.
Joakim Noah, Corey Brewer. Yep.
Golly.
Yep.
Stop making me feel old. Jeez.
It's like that tweet where like guys could literally just sit around and name old players from sports teams and just have the best time of their lives.
We went to the wrong part of podcasting. That's all we should have done. You guys remember this player?
It's like, oh yeah.
You guys remember?
I was texting you guys about that the other day, where it was like I was looking at some of those Heat teams from when LeBron and D Wade were there.
Yeah, we were just talking about this the other day too.
Yeah.
When I brought up that the Thunder at one point had Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, and James Harden all on the same team.
Serge Ibaka, Thabo Cephalosha. Like,
it is wild to me how
Birdman,
as we're naming off these teams, it's like, how did they not win every game they played? I get it, like the NBA,
their team ever. How did they not win?
I remember when it was like the first real super team that I remember from way back in the day was like Kevin Garnett. Yeah, who were the other two? Paul Pierce and Ray Allen. Yeah, those three. I remember there was a segment on like Pardon the Interruption where like, can they go 82-0? No, no team can do that. Like
Warriors almost did.
Yeah,
they almost did. That was 100% proof that I think it's impossible. They
did it extremely hard.
But then they lost they didn't win the championship.
No,
I was fine with that. I was fine.
Was that the one that LeBron beat them in, or is that another series?
There were too many of those.
New NBA season. It's going to be probably the Cavs and the Warriors again.
It was just That was the same thing. That was the same thing as like the Super Bowl matchup this year. That year for the NBA, it's like, wow, okay, cool.
Yep.
I'm cheering for nobody.
Right.
I'm cheering for a meteor.
The Timberwolves they're looking good, guys. It's I am genuinely very just excited for this sports team, and that I have not felt that feeling in a long time.
Right.
And it's really cool. I mean, they're, like I said, they play. It's not like a hero ball all the time. Like Anthony Edwards just takes the ball, shoots a three.
Right.
That's their offense. It's very much like a team effort, and everyone kind of chipping in and doing their part. And it's
I have a theory that block by, was it Anthony Edwards that did that crazy backboard block that you were talking about a little bit ago? I have a theory that was like not the tipping point necessarily, but that was the moment in the season where they're like, okay, we're going to go do this thing. Mm-hmm. They still have to prove it. They still have to do it. But I feel like that was, where they're like, yep, we're going to make this run.
Mm-hmm. Some of the conversations around like the media personality covering the team were kind of like in that same kind of time frame where Cat got injured and was out for a month and a half there, where it was just kind of like we're gonna rely on Anthony Edwards, and he's gonna have to get his, and then everyone's gonna have to chip in below that, and
some real next man up mentality. Bunch of lunch pail guys.
To their
first
credit,
one in, last one out.
They have arguably one of the deepest benches in the NBA this year, and they have a lot of guys that have put in a lot of work
for real
to get where they want to be, and it's it's cool to see them just kind of take their draft picks and develop them and turn it into something that a lot of people were not very high on the Rudy Gobert trade, and I mean even after last year it looked a little
he gave us all
shaky.
COVID, Nate.
People didn't think that we could play Towns and Gobert on the court at the same time and have any sort of success, and then people said that Rudy would just get played off the court in the playoffs, and he's proven that he's gone out on the perimeter to guard some of these guys and had a decent amount of success. And I don't know, it's fun to have that kind of no one believes in us mentality,
right?
Which I mean is completely fair, because it's the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they haven't had success in about 20 years, and also it's a Minnesota sports team, so everyone expects it to just come crumbling.
That's what I was just gonna say.
So
I was like, you're there, but you're close, but it's still Minnesota.
And it's especially interesting though, because it hasn't been so far, and again, things can wildly change. We could lose in 6 or 7 to the Nuggets, and completely have a different conversation in a couple weeks here. But like, the games they've won haven't been like, oh well, Anthony Edwards was 19 of 20 from the field, and like 10 for 10 from 3-pointers, and like just like an insane shooting night, or just getting lucky. It's been bringing your lunch pail on defense and seeing who can hit their shots on offense, and it seems more sustainable than just like they're on a little hot streak. Like they're obviously playing at a higher level than they had in the regular season, but it's not like a kind of lightning in a bottle, just maybe this last another week or so. But it's interesting, it's exciting. I've loved every minute of it. I mean, I was excited that we won game 1 in Denver. I didn't even enter my brain that it would be a possibility to beat Denver by 20 plus points in game 2 in Denver. So I'm still honestly like just trying to process that. that was not an outcome that I had happening. So but it comes back to Minnesota on Friday and Sunday, and we'll see. I'm still going to be very surprised if we actually sweep them, because
it's still the reigning NBA champs. Yep. And it's Jokic and it's Jamal Murray.
Yep.
And I mean, you're up 2 games to nothing, but like you can't sit back on cruise control. Like we can do this every game. It's the team that literally won the championship last year and was favorites the majority of this year to still repeat again. So it's kind of like the same mentality with the Warriors. It's like, they're always going to be their favorites in their prime when they were with KD and Steph and Clay. And just like, you can't count them out because they're still the team that can do what they have proved that they can do last year and this year. So I told you before, I will root for your personal happiness, but I will not root for any Minnesota teams ever.
That's okay. I'll cheer for him enough for the both of us. Don't you worry. But yeah, it's got to be a dogfight. I don't expect the Nuggets to just roll over. It's going to be a tough road for them to gain traction back in the series, but it's certainly not an impossible feat. And I think Anthony Edwards in one of his press conferences after game 2 was like, I mean, we're playing good, we're rolling, but they haven't been shooting well. They haven't been playing their top game yet either. So the
Warriors also famously blew a 3-1 lead to LeBron.
So
now, granted, that was LeBron.
Jokic isn't too bad at the basketballs either. So
he
That recent award he got, I think, says that same thing.
Yeah.
I will never get over how he can just he can do the craziest shot motion in the entire world and throw it up, and it's like, oh, it's in. Like, what? He'll drive through a lane, stumble in, just lob it up, and it's like, oh, it just goes in. Like, what? What are you doing?
It helps. It helps that he's like 7'8".
I know.
So it's just like he's just like,
it's like, oh, he's gonna fall down. Is it gonna be a travel? The ball off the backboard end, like cool.
Off the opposite backboard.
Yeah, the opposite backboard back in.
But to the Wolves' point, they've been. I don't know how much you guys have watched the games, especially like even just the Denver series.
Well, if these games stop tipping off at 8:30 and 9 o'clock, it'd be a lot helpful.
Well, they're in Denver.
Yeah, it sucks.
I don't have control over that. But
how is being in Minnesota going to be any different?
We get to our hockey segment. I
was
going to pick with that too.
There's an hour difference.
Oh, that's right. God, my brain did not work there. I went the wrong direction on a map. That's fair. Okay, that's fair.
But I mean, like I said, I don't know how much you guys have, watched them or dug too deep into them, but the Minnesota defense had the Nuggets in hell, especially in that second game. They were just,
oh yeah,
they were picking them up, 94 feet, and not making it easy at all. And it was, I mean, you have Anthony Edwards is a great on ball defender. Jaden McDaniels is our best perimeter defender, one of the top guys in the league. And then Nickeil Alexander-Walker comes up off the bench behind Jaden McDaniels. So you're like, oh, Jaden's going off the court. Great. I can, breathe for a second. And then, another one of the top 10 perimeter defenders in the NBA comes and swarms you. And it's, I don't know. I hope they can keep it up. It's been a fun run, but I've also listened to a couple, podcasts of the Timberwolves, and they just said, this isn't, an opportunity that has come along a lot for the Timberwolves. And, in the case of like we were talking about OKC back in 10, 15 years ago when they had Durant, Harden, and Westbrook, they were, I believe, I can't remember who was on the call, but they had mentioned like, oh yeah, these guys, like they lost whatever the finals, I think that year to LeBron, and they're like, these guys are going to be trouble for the years to come. And then they traded Harden that summer, and it never like there are no guarantees.
Apparently, years to come meant that summer.
And yep. So I am just gonna ride the wave here. I think I mentioned on the podcast a few this year, where I was just. My ultimate goal was that the Timberwolves made it out of the first round of the playoffs and kind of got that monkey off their back. So everything
that was
else
just gravy.
is just I'm happy that they're even in contention here and are playing as well as they have. So I'm just gonna ride the wave and see where it takes us.
Yeah,
right on.
Well, with that, we'll quickly touch on a quick couple of Nebraska topics in terms of college basketball. I think I'll get to the new transfer portal additions here in just a second. I think the biggest one that we were kind of waiting on was Rank Mask, whether he was going to come back, whether he was going to try to go pro somewhere else, type thing. Yeah, the answer is neither. He did come out and say that if you remember earlier in the beginning of the season, he was out about 3-ish games or so for just a little minor knee repair that he had. Clearly, it must not have bothered him enough throughout the rest of the season, because we never heard anything from him or Fred the rest of the season. I mean, he played up until the very end, injury free, that we knew of at that time. And then he comes out that that knee was still kind of bugging him, and long term for his career, long term for his health of trying to still play basketball in the future, just to get it repaired now and just sit out the next season on a medical red shirt. So he will be eligible again for the 2025-2026 season now, but he'll be out for this upcoming season. And that was kind of our, what we were waiting on was him. And then, how does Fred try to either help build that depth or replace it if you have to replace it? And then, it comes out, I think a day or two before Rank even announced anything. They got that big 7-foot Braxton May, however his name is, from Washington. Got that transfer portal addition. And then you still have forward Andrew Morgan from NDSU coming in. So that'll kind of help fill the rank, Josiah Void. I still think you probably need to try to go at least get one more big, just for the added depth. Like Nebraska had done like last year, you can move Juwan Gary to the inside power position, but don't really necessarily want to do that the whole season. So I'm sure they're still looking to try to get maybe just one more additional big player from the portal, just to kind of help fill the roster spot and everything. But then I don't remember if we talked about any of this last time, but Nebraska got a couple big backcourt additions that I think they definitely needed. The biggest one that I had preached about was getting a veteran point guard presence. And they got that from the transfer Raleigh Worcester. Yeah, I'm gonna butcher all of these names until I hear them until a bunch
Isn't
of
that a
times
type
during
of
the
sauce
season.
that you put on like
Worcestershire
Same
sauce? But he's a 3 or 4 year starter from Utah. Played about I think 100 or so games and the college level, the Power 5 level. So huge addition to get him for one more grad transfer year, just to help build that veteran backcourt presence that Nebraska lacked. And like I had said last year during the tournament, is you watch any tournament team, is they always have a veteran point guard that you can kind of build your offense around. So that's huge to get. And then Nebraska got a couple of good shooters, essentially. You got the Big Ten freshman, kind of freshman all player of the year type team of Gavin Griffiths from Rutgers last year. And then you get a transfer shooter, Connor Essegian from Wisconsin. So I think those are going to kind of help the Casey Void in terms of having a 3-point, just natural shooter going around. So Fred's done really well, I think, try to build this roster and fill the key pieces of, Casey, Josiah leaving, and, now that we know about Rank leaving. But like I said, probably need to get one more big to feel comfortable about the depth on your roster going forward for the season. So hopefully they can kind of get that going. But I feel pretty good about where they're at. And then kind of the last minor note is they released the opponents for Nebraska who they're going to play next year for conference schedule wise. And I was interested to see how they were going to do this with new teams coming in. So you play everybody once, essentially. And then the only teams they play twice where you have a home and away this coming next year is Iowa, Maryland, and Ohio State, which I should argue, because it didn't happen last year, that you should play Iowa twice a year, every year, regardless. So it's kind of probably what the schedule is going to be going forward is you'll probably play at least 2 or 3 probably 3 double teams every year where you have a home and away. And then every other year you'll flip back and forth between home and away of the other conference opponents is how I look at it. Now, next year, Nebraska has to go to Purdue and Wisconsin. So those are going to be gauntlet road trip games that they're going to have to face and not have a home option for either of those. So, but they both could look like very different teams without Edey. And Wisconsin got, they're rid of their transfers of Chucky and AJ Storr and everything. So they might not even be the same powerhouse team that they were next year as well. But yeah, kind of just quick NCAA basketball notes in terms of the Nebraska side. And if anything major happens, like another transfer, we'll do it. But that might also be it for college basketball until.
There's probably more that's happened in college basketball, but we're just really focused on Nebraska because we're all Nebraska fans. So
right. But now we're gonna go. Let's just go to hockey, Zach.
I was gonna say there's not a whole lot of MLBs. No, there is stuff, but we haven't paid any attention because we've been watching hockey.
The only baseball thing I will say is Paul Skeens is going to make his MLB debut this weekend for the Pirates. If you remember, the LSU pitcher from last year.
Hold on, though. There is something.
Living Dunn fan, I guess that's how you know about him too. But
so there's more stuff about Ohtani came out today. I don't know if you guys saw this.
Oh yes, that his interpreter did.
So yeah, his interpreter wired money to, it says reality TV. I don't know who this is.
An offshore account.
A real Housewives star. Oh. So yeah, I don't know. Let's see. I'm trying to find the name here. Ryan Boyajian. Current cast member of Bravo's reality TV series, The Real Housewives of Orange County. I don't know if there's a reason why. I haven't really read into it. I just thought that was hilarious. Like, out of all the places for it to go, that's where it went. Somebody that probably didn't need the money, to be honest. But, okay. Oh, I guess it was to pay his debts, his gambling debts. So I guess he was something that with them. I don't know.
Well, for how much that he stole from Ohtani, it's probably in the millions.
Yeah. So I'm hoping here, we'll probably maybe get back to MLB at some point. But right now, the hot goss for us is the NHL
hockey
and playoff hockey.
Playoff hockey.
And I know from my standpoint, I know that we've all kind of said this leading up to playoff hockey, that this is when our focus would change. Well, for me at least. I know obviously Nate's been watching NBA in the off chance, but like I know all three of us have been talking way more hockey than I think we've ever talked before.
Correct.
And it's so funny. We'll be randomly texting and be like hockey fight or just something like no context whatsoever outside of we know there's a hockey game on, but like that'll be like we won't talk to each other for a couple hours and all of a sudden it's like hockey fight.
Random hockey text.
And it's great. So I believe for me at least, I'm sure I'm a hockey convert now. So I'm in. Hockey's great and I will continue to watch it. But I was curious if anybody, I know we all kind of said we're going to pick. Well, I think Andy was already cheering for the Avs. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Did you have any other teams? Did you guys have any other teams that you were cheering for? I kind of went through and I was like, I'm going to pick these guys in my bracket.
Like I said,
bandwagon.
The Oilers, mainly because of one of my favorite gifts, but Connor McDavid is also very fun to watch. So that's why I would have been like on the Oilers bandwagon, and I still can be. I mean, they still are playing, but that's would have been my other team if it wasn't the Avs.
Yeah, my flow chart of hockey teams to follow goes like Minnesota Wild. We're out like 2 years ago. Hockey team or Canadian hockey teams who probably not going to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, given recent 30-year history. And then at the moment, the other team that seems interesting to me is the Carolina Hurricanes, because hurricanes are weather. And
I see what you did there.
I might be somewhat involved in weather in my personal life.
What?
For those who don't know, yeah.
No way.
Yeah, I kind of went that same route. So, one of the team. So the Canes were the one team that I was going to cheer for, and I was like, well, I might as well pick a few from like both sides of the bracket to kind of cheer for. Give me the best chance of bandwagoning somebody. 100%. I already know that. Like if I say, oh, I'm a Canes fan as of today, and they win, I understand that I'm a bandwagon fan. I don't care. I need somebody to cheer for, and it helps to cheer for a team that did decent in the last year. And then the Canucks was another one. You know, we got to have, got to have a Canadian team in there, which to your point though, earlier, Nate, that we were talking about, seems like Canadian teams are not holding up their end of the bargain too much.
They're down to 2 left and they are playing each other.
They'll get one team to the third round. It's will the other team that they face either knock them out again or advance to the finals. But the other 2 possible teams that they will face are wagons of teams. So,
regardless,
odds are probably not looking good right now.
Regardless of who, especially in the Avs and the Stars game. I mean, regardless whoever wins that's going to be a tough matchup. Whoever they play.
Yeah.
Canucks are scrappy, and I would like to preface everything we're about to say about hockey is probably limited knowledge, at least for me. So when I say they look like a scrappy team, if somebody's like, no, they actually play very clean. Okay, sounds good. I don't know. Yeah, the Avs have been fun to watch on and off. The team that I started cheering for just because I like their logo, that's a legit reason, was the Predators. And there for a while, I was like, they could actually pull this one out. And they were actually like my Cinderella pick. Like they were, it's not that they weren't supposed to make it, but like the first half of the season was really bad. And then I guess in the second half, they figured it out and they got to the playoffs. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, they could make a run, but it's not likely." So I was like, "I'll pick them as my Cinderella team." And then as we were watching them, I was like, "Oh, like these guys are actually fun to watch." And then so the Canes, the Predators was the team. I mean, out of that one, it was like, well, whoever wins that one, I win that regardless. But I don't like the Dallas Cowboys, so therefore I think I'm gonna have to pick the Avs to hopefully win. But I don't know. That's not really fair to like the Stars. And really, between the Panthers and the Bruins, I don't care. So I just don't want them to go all the way. So.
Right.
But playoff hockey is awesome. So
much fun. And I can speak more just on the Avs portion because that's the games I've watched the most. You know that, and I know when we were talking about when they game one of the Jets Avs game, that was the 7-6 game. We were like, holy crap, this is gonna be like an offensive type series because that was insanely wild to have a 7-6 hockey game. First off. But then the Avs were like, all right, we're done playing around. And then over the next 4 games, they scored 22 times and only let up 8 goals, which is a really good recipe to win a playoff hockey series. So take note, other teams that are not in the playoffs.
Retool for next year.
Get good. But then the game that happened last night, Dallas went up quickly 3-0 on the Avs in the first period, and you're like, "Oh, this game might be over already." And then the Avs slowly kind of started clawing back, and then 40 seconds into the third period, they scored and tied the game at 3-3. And then the rest of the period was just a wildfire of teams trying to score and nothing happening. And then the entire overtime period, I thought Dallas had all the momentum. They had probably 7 or 8 shots before the Avs won on their second, I think, shot of overtime to win and end the game and come back down 3 goals to win the game 4-3 in overtime. But it's going to be an exciting series for sure. Dallas will probably come out with more fire next game. They'll probably be pissed about how they blew a 3-goal game. But, that's playoff hockey, and that's why we love it.
Playoff hockey is awesome.
Yes, and
I know we've said that like 8 times now, but it is a different beast, and it's fun to watch. So.
And the Panthers just blew Boston out 6-1 right now. That game just ended, so that series is tied up 1-1, and it's really funny for me that hockey series game 2 can be played before Vancouver and Oilers didn't even play game 1, which is happening right now. But
that whole weird scheduling thing.
2 games have been played before 1 game of a series has even started.
Yep.
It's just
I don't get it.
To me.
I also don't get why. Yeah, this game is, as of we're recording, just puck dropped at like 9:20 Central Time.
People don't have to sleep.
That is my bone to pick with hockey.
Edmonton, Andy.
It doesn't matter.
It's 7:20 out here.
The only
The
reason
vibes are still good, man.
The only reason it's like this is because they want to keep it all on one network and the TV rights, so that's why they space them out. Who cares? Just flip it over to like ESPNU for like 20-25 minutes so you can still have a normal puck drop time.
I know this is totally unfair to teams, especially when they're playing too. But like, how like in the NFL, like when it goes to overtime, it's pretty quick. Like, they got to go through the whole coin flip and everything. But usually it's relatively quick. They have like a whole 15 to 20 minute intermission, and I get why they do it. I understand because these guys are moving fast as hell on ice. I get it, but it's like, man, like you get such momentum from like going into overtime, especially whatever the other game was. Oh, it was the Carolina game last night. Mm-hmm. They went into overtime, and I'm sitting there fired up, like, oh, okay, they're and then it's like 15-minute wait, and I'm like, son of a. Well, I guess I'll go, do something else for a little bit while I wait. But I was like, man, that's the only real bone to pick. And I get why it's done, but it's just like, man, I wish they could just like, keep it going real quick. But whatever.
So I think, if we talked about all the series, we talked about those. What's the last series?
Rangers, Hurricanes, we didn't really discuss. But
Rangers probably might make it to the finals. They look really good. They also had a double overtime victory last night as well. Yeah, we had 2 overtime games. Love free hockey too, especially free
Yeah.
playoff hockey.
Yeah,
But
I don't
the
know
Rangers
because
kind
like
of look good.
for a while there, it looked like Carolina was gonna pull it
Yeah.
out. It just was. It was just slow roll, but yeah, the Rangers came back. I don't even. Yeah, I think they did come back. I think
They did.
The Canes were up for a while, and then the Rangers came back. Yeah, I mean, I'd really like to see the Hurricanes make it further, but Rangers just look good. I mean, there's a reason why the Rangers were the number 1 seed on that side of the bracket, though, too. So I digress.
And the Oilers just scored off a power play. So sorry, Canucks.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I've got
I think
that
it's
on
going
my
to be
phone
you
right
coming
now.
out of the series.
Well, we might have, as long as we have a Canadian team make it pretty good.
You
just
will have
I
a
feel like-
Canadian team in the 3rd round. It's beyond that I don't know.
That's what I mean. Is like if we get one to the finals, then cool.
It's just
Or
again,
sorry, the Stanley Cup finals. There's different.
the other team on the other side of the other 2 teams on the other side of the bracket are wagon teams.
Yeah, really. I mean, just looking at the rest of this bracket, though, it's going to be good. From what I understand of hockey, good hockey going the rest of the way forward. So
Yes, you don't have the San Jose Sharks playing, so
Yeah.
or the Minnesota Wild.
or who's the other one? The Blackhawks.
Yeah, the Blackhawks, despite having Connor Bedard, they still suck.
Next year.
Next, yeah, sure.
I don't know. Maybe.
Or whatever the new Utah team is going to be.
Oh,
Utah
yeah.
hockey team.
Yeah.
Did we? So that's the only other thing really NHL related.
It did happen.
That happen? That happened between when we did our last episode, though, right?
Yeah,
we
'cause
knew
they-
that was happening.
They announced it right as Arizona season ended,
Yeah.
and then
But
they're
now-
like, "Oh, we're moving to Utah."
So I guess the big speculation now is like the NHL wants to expand to 36 teams, and I think
They
they're
can't even drink
30?
alcohol in Utah.
Yeah, I think I'm curious what they're going to call themselves, but so
The
Phoenix
Utah Mormons,
is still on the table,
and,
so like
their
there's
jersey is just a giant button-up shirt and a tie.
they're just going to look. Oh,
It's like those
that'd be
tuxedo
hilarious.
shirts, but just a hockey sweater.
That would be. But yeah,
Why
I guess
aren't we in charge of the NHL guys?
I guess the NHL wants to expand to 36 teams, which I mean, cool. I guess.
Omaha.
Yeah, that's why I think it'd be cool because then maybe Omaha would get a pro team. But
Omaha.
I guess they have the pro volleyball team. But
The Supernovas.
yeah, so that's going to be interesting to see. But then yeah, I guess the Phoenix like arena and everything, which is still supposed to happen. Like I guess the Coyotes could come back to Arizona. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of stuff in that regard. I'm like, I don't know anything about that, but that should be interesting. But playoff hockey, 2 thumbs up from this guy. So that's my ending point. If you guys got
Playoff
anything else.
hockey is great.
Playoff hockey.
Wolves back.
And go Avs.
All right. Well, I will. College hockey's over since we last talked
we
about it,
don't
I
need to
think.
do that.
So I'll indulge myself a little bit, but there's only been 1 race, so it'll be quick-ish. The only exciting thing, 2 exciting things that
Was
happened.
that Verstappen didn't win?
Yes, he got second, but he didn't win. But the guy that won it, Lando,
Saudis are
Lando.
up to their ways again. Seems sus.
Hey, hold on. It was in Miami. You can't blame them for that
No, I
one.
can still blame them.
Maybe, but I mean, it was in Miami. But no, the fun fact of the Formula One race this last weekend, as of this recording, was
Did you race?
huh?
Did you race? Is that the fun fact?
No,
Well,
I'm not good.
That could have been an excuse why we were off because you were training for Formula One.
Please, I have too much.
that cargo burger.
I have too much road rage as it is. I would not do well on a racetrack. Trust. But anyway, no, Max Verstappen did not win. However, one of, I think, like a lot of people's like favorite driver, like your favorite driver's favorite driver kind of situation, Lando Norris of McLaren, pulled out his first win ever in his Formula One career. He's had plenty of chances and like podiums, so he's gotten top 3, but never won it. So his first win. And I will just say this to anybody that's, getting into racing is weird because at first you're like, this is like, why am I watching cars go around a track? Like it's, like NASCAR is a big fancy kind of circle, but like Formula One has a bunch of twists and turns, so it's a little different. But there is just something about watching like all these strategies and all these people put together. It's more than just a driver doing a race. So it's very interesting watching all these strategies and all these different things come through. And then to watch it, the way that this one worked out was that a safety car came out, which then bunches everybody back up in the pack. But the guy that won, Norris, was in front of the safety car. And basically, it didn't give him like a free lap, but he was far enough ahead that it gave him a super quick chance for a pit stop to get brand new tires, all that jazz. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that went into this. And then he ended up winning the race. And not only did he win the race, he pulled ahead by one of the greatest drivers of F1 lately with Max Verstappen. And he beat him by like 8 seconds, which in racing, if you know anything about it, is like a year. So, yeah, getting into Formula One has been the weirdest sport I've ever gotten into this year. And it just like playoff hockey, it's super exciting once things like click into making more sense. I still don't understand everything about it by any means, but it was certainly one of the most exciting races I've ever watched, which is not that many, but like starting off, setting the bar pretty high. So it was a lot of fun. And it helped that it was at 3 p.m. and not at like 6 a.m. So that was nice. That's the Formula One.
Big Cargo Burr.
Yeah,
Big
they
Cargo Burr.
just say Cargo Burr. That's really about it.
I was looking at like some of our other notes, and I see that we have like a UFL point in here, but like I have not had a chance to watch any of it.
I'm not gonna. I will tell you now. I will not watch it.
I have
do not
heard
care
that
for it.
Adrian Martinez has been cooking, and that's
Adrian Martinez has been playing really well, according to like little highlight reels I see on Twitter. It looks fun. Like the cool thing is that you'll see really weird, you'll see really odd scores. Like you'll see like 19-18, and somehow the 19 came in like the last 2 minutes kind of thing.
Mhm.
It's super interesting, but I just don't have any time. But yeah,
Would
it turns
agree.
out. Remember when we said we started off that full-time podcasting is really hard?
Yes.
I maintain that, and we're not even doing it full time. Like we're not doing these every day. Which, if we did, these episodes would be a hell of a lot shorter. But
Yes.
I guess we'll leave it then with golf.
Golf. Yeah, we don't have to make this long. Scotty Scheffler is absolutely on fire in everything that he does. It's really all you got. All you really need to know. And if you want to make a smart, safe bet for the PGA Championship, the second major of the year next weekend, I would also go with Scotty Scheffler to win because it seems like that he has proven that he cannot lose anymore.
I wonder what that's like.
I think the stat was the past either 5 or 6 events that Scotty has played this year, he has won.
That's crazy.
Which insanely hard in golf. If you consider, if you take just how bad you are at golf and then try to do that consistently every single time that you go out and win, pretty hard to do. And there's a reason why he's the world #1 golfer right now.
As a hobbyist golfer myself, trust me, when I turn on like the golf channel just to see scores when they're going on and stuff like that, and I see -12, -13, I'm like, well, I'm just gonna quit. I know I'm not going pro. I know like that's not the right
with me
mentality,
shooting
like,
a 100 or over.
I was gonna say when it's like I go out and I shoot +15, +20, +30, like man, this sucks. It doesn't suck. It's fun to golf, but man, when you're not good at it, it can be frustrating. So I can only imagine what it's like to be a pro and be like, wow. And even there, like, oh man, I had a frustrating couple holes and I won a couple $1 million doing it. Like, I wish I could do that.
Right.
But I digress. So,
yeah. But that's
anything else,
my
gentlemen?
pick.
Go
No.
Tiger.
Always go Tiger, but it's gonna be pretty tough to beat Scotty Scheffler.
I'll pick Wyndham Clark. Why not?
Just because it's a fun name to say.
Yeah. And it's spelled really interesting too.
Yeah.
That's all I got. That's my golf analysis.
Hell
One
yeah.
name spelled cool.
Yeah. But then the last bit of college baseball, real quick. Nebraska continues this fun trend of doing the good thing's good and the bad thing's bad. Where they win the important games, they keep winning conference series. They've only lost one conference series this entire year. Everything else, besides the Northwestern sweep, was they keep winning these series 2-1, and then they famously keep going into these midweek games and losing, like they are currently right now to the Jackrabbits of South Dakota State. They are losing 10-6. And that's in the bottom of the ninth. So unless that changes in the next 5 minutes here, that's probably another loss during a midweek game. The only silver lining of the midweek games was last week. Jackson Brockett threw the first no-hitter in Nebraska baseball history in over 60 or 70 years, I think they said. I think it was over 60 years. But was a fun game to listen to. Obviously a no-hitter, very rare feat. And my favorite thing about that was watching all the beat writers keep tweeting, but like subliminally tweeting, like, here's the score line: 0 runs, 0 hits, 0 errors, and then 8 runs, like 12 hits, 0 errors. Instead of just saying, like, Kansas State has no hits in this inning, we'll go to the next inning. Like, they just keep tweeting out things like that. So, like, they're saying it, but they're not saying it because, you don't say the jinx at all. And listening to, like, the clips of after they threw the no-hitter and everything, it's like, and you will want to come back for the top of the ninth because it's going to be a good inning for those that want to watch type thing. So outside of that, Nebraska's tied for second, just a game out of the first of the Big Ten standings right now for the conference. So again, these midweek games don't hurt in terms of conference play, but Nebraska's chance of hosting a regional just keeps going down the drain. So they'll probably end up as a 2 seed, probably in A&M's regional, because why the hell not?
I was just going to say, we're just going to play A&M again eventually.
Yeah,
So.
A&M's the number one team in the nation.
Start of the season.
Yeah. And yeah, A&M is the number one team in the nation right now. So why the hell not put us in, the best teams regional to start? So I will look forward to that, and then Nebraska losing because NCAA hates Nebraska, but they're still a good team. It was just it's been a weird year that they just continued to win the important games, but then like not win the not important games, but you still should still win them. Because I think that's
Nebraska,
probably,
baby.
I mean, if the Creighton series they got swept in, Creighton's also been weird. Where like Creighton wins the midweek games, but they keep losing the weekend games in the Big East, and they might miss their conference tournament, even though they're like 30-15 or 31-14. Absolutely wild. And Creighton might miss the NCAA tournament because of that reason. So college baseball is weird. Just know that. But yeah. I mean, if you just take like 4 or 5 of those wins during the midweek games and Nebraska wins, there's a real chance that they're like a lock to host a regional. But yeah, they're pretty much going to have to win out and win the conference tournament to even be considered to host a regional. And even then, I don't know if that gets them. They might have to get close to 40 wins or even get to 40 wins. But losing tonight does not help the cause when you have like 6 games left now.
I mean, I can't imagine losing it all helps too much.
No, it doesn't. But it's just,
I don't understand how the baseball sphere works in that regard.
Nebraska's good, but they're not good at the same time.
That sounds right. Pretty on. Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds pretty on base. I was gonna say when you talk about Nebraska, it's like they're really good at certain things, but then the stuff they're not good at, they're really bad at.
That's
so,
like not just bad, but like really bad. Yeah. Not where like you can kind of like mask it over with the things that you're good at. Like the really bad things are really evident.
Yeah,
it's not where like you're trying to nitpick like, oh, they're good at this, but like we can nitpick this and make it bad. Like, no, they're just like bullpen pitching really, really bad.
Good to know. Good to know.
Which probably will come bite them conference tournament time and regional time.
Probably.
Probably.
I mean, let's be fair to ourselves, I guess, but
because they have
it will.
They have really great starting pitching on the weekends. It's when you get into the bullpen area, especially these midweek games, that like bite you.
You know what
And
college
that's
kids
what
do
you
on the
need
weekends,
in
right?
the tournaments. You study.
College, maybe. But I was going to say the reverse. So maybe there's something. Maybe they just need to party all week.
Oh.
Maybe they're so good on the weekends because they're. I doubt it, but like maybe there's some logic. Maybe when they just play with a little bit more, like, oh, we partied last night. We're feeling good today. Maybe there's something to it. Yeah. Play loose and no inhibitions.
Right.
Anything else, boys?
No, I think that's a wrap. There's a lot to catch up on, and who knows? Hopefully, another couple weeks. Again, might be longer. Who knows? We don't even really know either.
It's a fluid thing.
It's a fluid thing of when
we're trying to figure
us our funds to keep the revenue going. So
yeah. Pay up, Runza. Not a sponsor
yet. But with that, playoff. Keep watching your playoff NBA, playoff hockey. Once that's over, it's baseball and the dead season of sports. So
this is the Olympics. The Olympics will save us.
The Olympics will save us when we all inevitably stay up until like 3 a.m. watching breakdancing because that's a new Olympic sport this year.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm 100% staying up for that. I have no idea how you judge it, but I'm staying up for that.
Neither do I, but it's a new Olympic sport this year, so that's one of them.
How do you think they come up with ideas for sports? I swear, like they got to just be like, hey, we got that dartboard over there. Let's throw some stuff up there and they throw a dart 3 times and see what they get.
My favorite
I would watch Olympic darts, by the way.
Yes.
Is that not a thing?
I have no idea.
I don't know, but if it's not,
hold on.
I would.
We're all about to find out right now.
Besides curling, obviously the best Olympic sport, hands down. The ones where they like do the skis and that they have to stop and shoot at the targets. I don't know what that one's called, but that's a really fun one to watch too.
Darts is not an Olympic sport right now. That's wild. It should be.
Like, who thought like, oh, we're gonna ski, but then we're gonna stop and we're gonna shoot at some targets, and then we're gonna keep skiing. Like, who thinks of these things? Obviously, people with bigger brains than I have.
I don't know. Are we sure? Darts isn't in the Olympics.
That's true. That's a good point.
Darts would 100% be an awesome Olympic sport.
Cornhole would be fun.
Is pool not like swimming? I'm talking about like billiards.
No, not pool is an Olympic sport. But no, not like billiards. No, I don't believe so.
What the hell?
But
two of the best bar sports in the world. But breakdancing is, which admittedly I'm officially interested now, I guess.
And we're gonna have,
I guess that's why they do it.
We're gonna have a USA squad in basketball that will probably lose to the Serbians.
Just take the Minnesota Timberwolves team.
Nate, Anthony Edwards can't do everything on that team.
Well, he's going to be pretty tired coming off those finals appearances. So,
not this.
He might.
He might.
Once you start playing Luka and Joker on the same team, though.
Yeah. Wait. Are you saying that there are some egos on these teams, Andy?
No, not at all.
Are you telling me that sports teams with high dollar athletes have egos?
No, not at all.
That watches F1.
Yeah, big car go the burr.
Big car go burr.
Big car.
Hey, it's exciting.
But yeah, so we have nothing else, boys. That was another successful catch up, and hopefully nothing emergent happens where we have to do an emergency podcast.
I don't know if something does.
Nebraska, keep it together.
Trev comes back. That would be weird. But that, like I said, watch your playoff sports. Keep updated on those fun playoff times because they will not last very long. And then we'll be talking about the Olympics here real soon because that's going to be about the only thing left to talk about.
Hey, there's still baseball.
There's still baseball. But then it's baseball. I we skipped over that segment almost entirely tonight.
To be fair, we said why. I mean, like it's
Yeah,
not
we
like
did
we
say why.
watched any baseball recently. I haven't watched enough to be like, oh, I've got takes on it outside of the Otani thing. So
I know that the Twins had a rally sausage that got them 12 straight wins. So
They did
that
until
was
the
their
Red
contribution
Sox
to the
beat
sport.
them. Also, what's really cruel is the Red Sox did lose to the Braves tonight, 5-0, which not surprising. It's the Braves, but the starting pitcher was Chris Sale,
Oh.
and that is some mean karma. Who shut out the Red Sox after being traded away from the Red Sox. So that's just cruel, baseball world, and you didn't really need to do that. But
well, to our fellow baseball fans, we'll try to be better next time.
yes. And of course, if you have listeners, anything that you want us to talk about, you can always find our socials on Twitter and on Facebook. Anytime that you want to drop us a message or a comment or text any one of us individually or all together if you want. There's no saying that what we can and can't do here, but yeah, let us know if there's anything anybody wants us to talk about going forward. Because we're gonna need some fun topics as we wind up for football season in a couple of months, which will be coming up very shortly, surprisingly, even though there's a whole summer ahead. And then we'll be talking about how Dylan Royola is the Lord and Savior leading us to the promised land. Along with Matt Rule, of course.
Yeah, thankfully, Nebraska fans are some of the most level-headed, and we never oversell ourselves on
Never. Absolutely would never
We
do
never
that.
do that.
The most reasonable expectations.
100%. Always.
Reasonable, level-headed sipping of some water that looks red and tasty in the form of some sugary flavors called Kool-Aid. Would never open up that tap and just straight chug out of it at any point. Just doesn't sound like what any of us would do.
No.
And definitely don't mind the fact that Zach said earlier that his shirt was covered in said Kool-Aid before. So
there's no proof. I washed
no proof of it. It's white. So
I washed it all out. Lots of bleach.
That shirt was red at one point. You wouldn't know it, but it was.
Lots of bleach.
But for myself, Nate, and Zach, we are your source for sports. Signing off.